I'm Joanne Schneider. I'm one of the chairs of the IRB, the Institutional Review Board for St. Louis University. And the other chair is Bill Ferguson. The two of us are the face of the board. The board itself is anonymous, so we speak for the board. So that means our signature goes on the bottom of letters, non-compliance, and any of the issues that we have to deal with. So today I'm going to be just giving you an overview of IRB and what it is and why we have it. So the Institutional Review Board, and I'll call it IRB, is a committee charged with the review of human subjects to ensure the rights and welfare of human participants, that they are adequately protected, and that research is compliant with federal, state, and university policies and procedures. This all came about from back, just after World War II, where 23 German Nazi doctors were charged with crimes against humanity. And they did these medical experiments with concentration camp inmates, and it was atrocious, very brutal. Commonly, it wasn't uncommon to result in death. It was torturous. From that, the Nuremberg Code was written, and that was the first recognized code of ethics for research. It required informed consent, and that it was voluntary to participate. To participate, it was a voluntary decision. It also the experiment had to be justified. In other words, it had to have scientific merit. The benefits had to outweigh the risk. Participants were allowed to voluntarily withdraw at any time, and only qualified scientists could do research, but it had little effect on human subjects research. Because during that time, the Public Health Service was doing their syphilis study. And I'm sure you probably have all heard about that. That was where they examined the natural course of untreated syphilis in Black American men. And that was even after a treatment for syphilis was available in the 1940s. Then in 1963, Chester Southam injected live cancer cells into 22 debilitated patients just to determine if it was immune deficiency or being debilitated that caused cancer. Saul Klugman studied immunity, and he gave children gamma globulin, then deliberately infected them with hepatitis virus. And you may have heard about the Stanford Prison Experiment. This was in 1973. There is a documentary on this, so I saw it a few years ago. The whole purpose was to observe the effects of stress on behavior in healthy, mainly middle-class, college-educated men who were considered normal. So these guys were assigned to different roles, guards or prisoners, and the guards' menial punishments really extended into like bathroom privileges and solitary confinement. And of course, that was met with response with the prisoners. So it was expected to last 2 weeks, and it was shut down in 6 days because both sides were exhibiting pretty intense harmful behaviors toward each other. If If you haven't seen that documentary, just to see how the human spirit is crushed will bring tears to your eyes. So then in 1974, the National Research Act was passed. And the whole idea of this act was to form the National Commission to identify the ethical principles and develop guidelines. And it established the IRBs. So from that National Commission then, after about 4 years, during those 4 years, they wrote reports on things like vulnerable populations. You can read them up. There's special reports about how, like IRB should operate. But the final report from that commission was called the Belmont Report. And we are still under that, the overall principles of the Belmont Report. The three main principles of the Belmont Report are respect for persons, and that means that participation in research is voluntary, and people are given informed consent so they can make a reasonable decision for themselves. It recognizes their autonomy, and this also means that people who belong to vulnerable populations also, there is extra protections put in for them. The second principle is beneficence. That means basically minimum harm and maximum benefits. And then justice. The burdens and the benefits should be equally distributed. In other words, the burdens and the benefits are distributed equally across race, across socioeconomic status. No one should benefit or be at more risk because of a group that they belong to. And yet, the gene therapy trial where Jesse had mild OTC disease, the scientists did not immediately report and halt the study as was required when 2 patients suffered serious side effects. Jesse's pre-trial test indicated he probably didn't really qualify for the study. The FDA had tightened up the trial's eligibility criteria, but there was no follow-through on that. The co-investigator Wilson had financial interests because it was his gene therapy research. Jesse died in 1999 at the age of 18. And just across the river, Bill Halford, and this isn't even that long ago, he injected several people with unapproved vaccines that he had developed to treat and prevent herpes. And he did this at 2 hotels in Springfield, Illinois. This was not approved by the SIU, IRB, and he had financial interest. And I could go through so many other examples of scientific misconduct or violation of the ethics, research ethics. Basically, overambition can cancel out sound reasoning. So we are under the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 45, well, we just refer to it as 45 CFR 46. And it covers, there's a lot of regulations. Subpart A is the federal policy on the protection of human subjects. And then there's other subparts. Subpart B for pregnant women, human fetuses, and neonates. And then C for prisoners, and subpart D for children. Basically, 45 CFR 46 complies with all the federal regulations set forth by the Health and Human Services, the FDA, and NIH. But we also have to review for Missouri state and local laws. and SLU policies and the Catholic directives. So when we review a protocol, we look for risk to be minimized and, reasonable compared to the benefits. We look that that subjects are treated, the selection of the subjects are fair, meaning that the burdens or benefits are equally distributed. We also look for the fact that this is that volunteers can voluntarily participate and that their informed consent is clear, so that they are well informed to be able to make a good decision, and then that their decision is free of coercion and undue influence. We also look for special protections for vulnerable populations, and we look to make sure that the data are monitored for safety issues and for privacy and confidentiality. And we also look for transparency when it comes to the management of conflicts of interest. So we review all biomedical and behavioral research. We cover various sites, SLU, SLU Care, the hospital, SSM. The research really is all about humans. So anything that is about a human, the information you collect, if it's about a human, it could fall under research. So in other words, just a chart review could be seen as research. So we have 2 convened boards. They meet on the first and third Tuesdays of the month. We also have an ad hoc one for any emergency type of things. Those boards are composed of physicians, non-physician scientists, nurses, pharmacists, attorneys, and lay people in the community. Like I said, Bill and I are the face of those, so the reviewers remain anonymous. We speak for the board. Then we also have an office that serves the board and the research community. They're sort of the liaison. And I brought Mirella Grabick here today to answer any questions because she's from the office. And that office also has several analysts that manage the submissions from your departments. And then we have a set of designated reviewers that are available to us for any reviews that maybe don't meet the criteria to go to the full board, but need to be reviewed. So there's several different types of IRB reviews. The full board, which goes actually to the board of a group of people who are like in the same room. We've gone Zoom now, but in the same Zoom room looking at the protocol and discussing it. Then there's expedited reviews. Those are those external reviewers that we have. And exempt are those that don't require going to the full board, but they still have to be reviewed. These labels are federal labels. So just because they say exempt does not mean they're exempt from any review. It's just exempt from full board. It still gets reviewed at SLU. And then central and external reviews. And we also have a human subjects research determination form. So I'll go through a little bit about these. Like I said, the full board is for the convened board, and it's usually greater than minimal risk. And it's things like maybe FDA approved or investigational drugs or devices, things like that, or a study that is targeting vulnerable populations. Expedited is no more than minimal risk, and the federal government has very concrete categories about what fits under expedited. The bottom line is anytime you think you're submitting an expedited or exempt protocol, you must request that with sound justification. And then it gets reviewed. For an expedited, it gets reviewed by the staff in the office and a designated reviewer. Sometimes they're bumped up to the full board. You know, if any of those reviewers, the staff or the designated reviewer wants additional input. Those also get reviewed annually. And then the exempt, again, those are reviews that are no more than minimal risk, but they have to meet the exempt categories. And again, the researcher must request that exemption with sound justification. Those are quicker, have a quicker turnaround, and because they're reviewed by the staff, and they could be reviewed by a designated reviewer. The bottom line, exempt does not mean that you do not have to be reviewed by the IRB or the staff. So you never really make those decisions yourself. You request those kind of reviews. All protocols are reviewed by the IRB. So if you're doing like a QI study and you think it's not research, you still aren't the ones to decide that, nor would I on my projects if I had a QI study. So we have a human subjects research determination form that asks you questions. Basically, these are the criteria for the federal regulation criteria for the definition of human subjects research. Is the information about humans? Is there any kind of interaction with those humans? Is it identifiable? And then finally, does it contribute to generalizable knowledge? And depending on how you answer those will help determine whether or not it's QI or research. And sometimes it's actually both. So QI, the whole intent of QI is to improve the outcomes within the institution. But again, depending on how you do it, it could qualify for both. So we went from an old, well, I would say sort of archaic system to what is called the ARCH IRB. And I think it's really cool. It's off the shelf so that it's very well managed and used. So because it's so new, I'm going to ask Mirella to come up here and do the next part because it involves the ARCH changes. Probably have to stand here a little bit.
I'll just hold it.
Yeah. This is good.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mirella Gradick. I am the Associate Director of Quality Assurance and Education for the Human Research Protection Program. So I am located in the IRB office, but I don't actually do any of the reviews or do the work that the analysts do. So I normally do the compliance piece when you guys are approved or need any education for your research studies. So as Joanne noted, we just recently started with ARCH IRB. So if you do have a research study or you're thinking about doing research, we have an investigator manual that I highly recommend you guys look through. It's about 60 pages long. However, it is very detailed, written of what you need to start your research, from the training material that's required and mandatory for every staff to have, to the forms that are required for the type of research that you might be doing. It's all located there, and also the templates that you might need to complete when you're doing your submissions. So click on the link you will go to, and you are welcome to review it. Another great resource if you're starting research is going to the IRB website. So this is actually located on the SLU website. If you Google SLU IRB, it's going to be the first link that pops up. It is still a work in progress as we're changing the system. So some of the forms are actually outdated in the website here, but it does give you great resource on how to start research, what you need and who to contact. And again, this is located on, website, just Google SLU IRB, and it's the first link. Then this is an example of Arch IRB. It is located by going to myslu.slu.edu. So it's that app store that we all see on the SLU website. There is an app, it's called Arch IRB. So when you click on it, this will be the face of it. And under the IRB tab, there is a library tab where you will find all of our standard operating procedures, a general tab where you will also locate the investigator manual that I mentioned earlier, worksheets and checklists, depending on the type of research that you're doing. They will all be located right there, as well as the protocol templates that you will need to complete. So everything is in Word documents, and we expect as you're submitting things to us in Arch IRB that it is in Word format. That way any edits are tracked. I included this resource tab so it's easier for everyone. The first link is the Help Center. So we have simple trainings that are about 1 to 3 minutes long for every question that you might come and think of. So how to submit a protocol, how to navigate Arch IRB, how to close a study, how to submit a not human subject determination form. It's located in the Help Center of the system. So there is PowerPoint slides as well as video guidance. The second link is our intranet SharePoint. So SLU is going towards a SharePoint kind of intranet aspect, and not just our office, but it will be other offices as well. So if you have funding and maybe are working on grants, there will be a SharePoint site, so an intranet site where you will find templates, resources, guidances. And under hours, we also include Zoom links. We do host open hours every single week. So you have questions about your submissions or getting started. It occurs every Friday between 10 and 11. And that Zoom link and any other training sessions will be located in that SharePoint. Any questions?